Welcome to video 107, Selections General. So I'm gonna show you how you can do the general selections. To get to the select menu, if you don't have it on your screen, you can go to View, Select. And I have it set up on my system in my workspace as an auto hide menu. If you want to know how I got that there, you can watch video 302, which shows how to do this. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to toggle the auto hide, and the general selections that we're going to talk about are these over here. So let's start by just looking at one of our layers here and go over some of the basics. I'll start with the select window. This is probably one of the most used selects that you will be using, methods that you will be using. Select window has a couple of options: in, out, and cross. There are some more, but those are for a future video. In, out, and cross. So what does that mean? You can select a window, drag like this, and everything inside that window is selected. So select window with the option in. Up here you will see that it actually shows you how many objects have been selected. And if you are curious as to what they all are, you can click on the info button and it will tell you, oh, there are 8,000 something draws and 645 flashes. It's also up here where you decide if you are adding selections or subtracting selections. So as an example, we added everything inside here. Let's say I want to now subtract a part of this. So I'm just going to go again with my select window. Let's say that I don't want to affect the text up here. So subtracting, adding. If you want to select everything, there's a shortcut for that. Select all. If you want to reset the selections, there's also a shortcut for that. Just reset. And if you happen to, like, you've selected these, but you want to have the opposite of what you see selected on the screen, toggle. Just toggle, and it will toggle back and forth between what you had selected and the opposite of what you had selected. So this would be a method, could be a method to select everything outside an outline. You could definitely do it that way. Another way to do this would be if you, instead of select window in, you select window out. Now, when I drag a window, everything outside of the window that I'm dragging here will be selected. Right, so it's less clicks this way than rather than selected first, do a toggle, etc. So there's different ways to do that. Let's do a reset. Now, there's also a way to switch the in together with crossing. So let's first show cross by itself. So for that, I'm going to zoom in. And if I select a window that crosses an item, see in this case it crosses this draw, it will select that. So if I cross this flash, it was selected. Sometimes it's handy to do it like that, because if you, this way, if you would select in and you would try to do that same line, you may not be so lucky as I just was in this case. So we have those abilities. You can also switch in and crossing on. Sometimes you switch it on together if you like, because then you could just click on a pad, for example, and you can drag a line or a window through a feature, and it's a handy shortcut that way. So in, out, cross together with select windows. Now, in one of the earliest videos, we noticed that these SMD pads are actually drawn, or Another word for that is painted. So we have a shortcut button that selects all of the painted features. Click on it. It will select all of the painted features. And then of course you can do something with that. But that will be the subject of another video. So we actually have a duplication of one of the features here. Select aperture. That's the same as the aperture that is current over here. We have that also available in the aperture manager as we saw in the video 105. So I have both shortcuts like this and like that. If I had a job that had multiple circles of 10, for example, then with aperture definition, I would be able to select all of those at the same time, which would be the same effect as if I would select multiple ones in the aperture list and then use this, like we did in the aperture video. So then we have chained. Chained is an interesting one because you can actually, let's switch back to real view. Like if I want to select the entire line, all of these lines over here in one click, well, that's a chain of lines. So with chained, I can click on the chain and it will follow the lines and go through the endpoints of those lines and select them. So we have reverse. Now for reverse basically is select negative or reverse features. So so for reverse, we need to first have something that is reversed. And what I'm going to do here very quickly, a function that we will return back to in the later video, but I'm going to actually reverse this layer like this. And now I can use my reverse selection just to show you. If I click on reverse, we will see that that reverse layer actually put a background and then reversed all the apertures on top of that. So just as an example of reversing layers and selecting reverse features. I'm going to do undo, bring my layer back like this. So now let's look at an example of we have ref layer and we have overlaps. Both of these are using a secondary layer. So as an example for select overlap, overlap uses a reference layer. That reference layer is the one that you're putting in plane 2. Like in this case, I'm going to do a selection that selects all of the features on the silk screen that are being touched by drills. So when I say select overlaps, you see it selects all of these lines over here because each of these drill files is actually touching the traces. So that's an example of overlaps. Another example of how we can work with this is, let's say over here I have the situation in this particular job that these particular paths over here are actually not drilled correctly. So I got in my drawing, the customer maybe told me, you know, all these paths here, like in this case, there are too many of them that I have. So let's use our select, yeah. So I can drag a window, select window, and I have all of these paths. Now let's go and pick up the other one. I do a select window, and see, and since I use select window, I can go and touch these other traces over here, because since they are not entirely inside the window, it works perfectly fine that way. Okay, so now we have our paths the way that we want to select. I'm going to take the circle of 8 out. There's some extra painting inside here. So what I actually want to do now is I want to use these selected paths from my copper layer to select the drills that are inside there. So the way I do that is I will switch my drill. I will switch that one into plane 1. That will automatically switch the two layers over. You see they swap colors. And if I now activate my copper layer, which has selections, which if you remember from the video 103, it is filled in red versus filled in yellow in this case. So I have selections there, I don't have selections there. If I now use the function ref layer, I will select all of these drilled files, all the drill holes on the drill file that I'm actually interested in. So now that I know that they are 16, they are actually supposed to be component holes, which are the same as these. So I can use my function query, find that those are 37, and use my edit replace like we did in a previous video. I finish up with reset, and my job has been adjusted. So we covered all of these functions. There's one more that we're going to cover, which is current object. Current object works together with the query object function. So if you recall, there was some embedded information in here. It's like if we look in the skeleton view, we see that there's some additional traces. Now there's several different ways I could go in here. I can probably find it that way, but just as an example, I want to show you the query object function. So with query object, which has its own dialog box, I click on query and I can drag a window over this particular location. And now when I toggle through the objects that it found, the first one is the trace. The second one is the big path. And the third one is actually the little draw. So by using the query object, I was able to narrow down, I was able to say, to find this particular feature that I care about. And now I can use the current object selections to select it. And for example, clicking on delete and removing it. So current object works together with query objects. We will revisit query objects for some other purposes in future videos. That covers the different selects in the general tab, and it concludes video 107. Thank you.